Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
It's very good to be here with you. Sometimes when the weather gets nice in Portland, nobody comes to play with me at the temple. Only a few people, so. I'm touched that you choose to come and support each other. I led back-to-back retreats. So last week I was in Corvallis, and the week before that I was in Asheville. And I was doing a retreat on Dharma and parts work, and something about my understanding about the human condition shifted a little bit. I think in a good way, like a new angle on things, and I want to share that with you. So, let's say that human beings have the reality of rawness. We have the reality of rawness, and that there's three kinds of rawness. And these three kinds of rawness are something that you can never get rid of, stop, delete. Your spiritual practice in whatever form is not going to have you transcend these. They're going to remain a feature of your existence. And these three kinds of rawness, or three rawnesses. The first is uncertainty, the rawness of uncertainty. The second is the rawness of sensory discomfort. And the third is the rawness of lack of control. So I'll start with the rawness of uncertainty. We don't fully know, and we can never fully know, what's going on inside our bodies. That can be pretty hard truth to live with. Yeah, my father died when I was very young of cancer, and it wasn't until I outlived him that a certain sort of anxiety about, is it going to be me too in the same way, finally dropped away. We don't fully know what's going on inside our bodies, and we never can. It doesn't matter how many tests you do. We don't fully know what's going on inside other people's minds. We don't like that very much, so we pretend that we do. We don't even fully know what's going on in our minds, even practitioners, and yet we somehow think we might be able to fully know what's going on in other people's minds. It's a realm of uncertainty, and it's raw because even those we live with intimately, we don't fully know what's going on with their minds. We could sleep next to somebody for 20 years and not fully know only partially what it's like, what they think and feel and perceive. We can't ever make that go away. No matter how much you sit and have connecting time with your beloved or whoever it may be, you can never fully know. It's always going to be uncertain. Related, we don't fully know when or how or if people are going to change. We might want it, we might pray for it, we might pay for it, and they might not. Or we might not want it, we might pray that they don't change, and then they do. And you never can delete this from existence. Marriage doesn't do it. There's absolutely nothing you can do to extinguish the fact that you don't know if someone's going to change their mind. For what you perceive as good, for what you perceive as bad. We don't fully know when nature will do one of nature's doings. So I was speaking to a group of people who lived through Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. That wasn't supposed to happen. That doesn't happen up there. It was a shock not only to the structure of Asheville and surrounding areas, but to the mind that thought, that's not what happens here. People moved to Asheville. In fact, meteorologists, a few of them I knew through acquaintances, moved there because, well, Asheville's a climate haven. The research said it won't happen here. We're good. We don't and can't fully know when nature will do one of nature's doings. Make predictions. We can't and don't fully know what the future will bring. You've heard this before. But accordingly, we don't fully know what the outcomes of our own actions will be. Cause and effect is multi-layered. Cause and effect includes echoes from the past that we can't account for because we're not living that moment now. There are streams of intentionality that shape life, that shape ours, instincts, heredity, culture, perhaps past lives. So we think I'm going from point A to point B. Maybe it's more accurate to say I'm going from point A-ish to point B-ish. We don't fully know the outcomes of our actions. We don't fully know what happened in the past, and we can't fully know. That's a very hard one for human beings. People reprocess and reinterpret memory immediately after an event happens. Immediately. The further you get from the event, the more it becomes an image of an event that is then processed, reacted to, responded to, revised, evolved. Now, I'm not saying something that you experienced in the past is just your imagination. I'm saying we don't fully know what happened in the past. We can't fully account for it. It's uncertain. And there's the rawness. All of these are raw. I should be saying that over and over. That's one of the main points. There's the rawness that we don't fully know ourselves. We can be surprised, positively and negatively, about what we do or what we don't do. Who we'll become. Right? Just as like a sort of tame example, weirdest thing that I would end up a Buddhist person. If you had sort of asked my 12 or 15-year-old self what he thought about that, it would have been pretty unlikely. The odds were low. I didn't fully know myself. Right? That's definitely true. And that's raw in a sense because we experience uncertainty as raw. Now, I'm not saying rawness is negative. I'm not saying it's positive. I'm saying there's a rawness to these uncertainties. There's the rawness of sensory discomfort that you can never delete. You can't buy the right clothes and make it go away. Our bodies are naturally one with the environment. We're open systems. Our bodies co-enact the whole range of the texture of being. We are designed to feel burning, nausea, shakiness, coldness, pressure, heaviness, spaciness, agitation, hollowness, constrictions, you name it. We are designed to experience all of these intense textures of being. Think about it. You have the equipment to experience nausea, for example. If you didn't have the equipment, you couldn't experience it. You've got the hardware, so to speak. And we experience and feel intensities of various sorts, including emotions. That's partially a sensory experience. And it's intense. It's intense to feel these things. And it's raw that we don't have any choice. Right? Much of modern life is to reduce sensory rawness. We've succeeded to a large degree, but it'll still find you. Still find you. There's the rawness of lack of control. We never get into a situation where we eradicate the rawness that we don't have that much control. We have influence in this life, but it's limited. First of all, on a large scale, we could say the governments doing terrible things is like this almost godlike force that moves through history. On a personal level, for every one thing we seem to be able to prevent because we steer clear, there are 9 things that are unpreventable. For example, just to use somewhat surface examples, we prevent our partner from making us watch X because we don't want to be bored, and we say, let's watch Y. But then Y is boring. We couldn't control the experience of boredom. We tried to. Or the heavy jacket, which perfectly prevents you from the discomfort of coldness. That's not getting me. I went to REI, boom, I'm good. Got a scarf. There's not an inch of me this cold is gonna get to. I know some of you are really good at this. Not an inch. But then you go in somewhere and you're so hot. And your REI coat, you don't want to put it on the hook because you're a little afraid that someone else wants your coat. So you prevented the discomfort of coldness, but you got the discomfort of heat. You can't control it. Or you go to a social event and you're very good at avoiding the one person that you find very awkward. So you kind of position it just right. Maybe even you know when to arrive. Oh, she arrives, or she's an early person. I'll slide in late, I'll get a drink, I'll go to the corner. And lo and behold, someone else that irritates you is right there in that corner. You got away from person A, but person B, they find you. Or you leave a job, you avoid person A. Yep. Or you get them fired. Guess what happens, especially if you're a practitioner? Just another version of person A comes. They multiply. They're like flies. People and situations can only be controlled temporarily. And even if we do exert control, there's the sensory discomfort of what it does to our bodies to control. And there's the uncertainty of, can I maintain this? We can't control how we are seen. We can go to great lengths, live a whole lifetime trying to control how we are seen. Many people do that. It doesn't work. No matter what, people are free to think what they think about you. These three rawnesses, uncertainty, sensory discomfort, lack of control, they're the water in which we swim. They're existentially and spiritually defining for us. Because in response to each of these three rawnesses, they have what I'm now calling, we have what I'm now calling buffering. We try to buffer each of these three rawnesses each in our own way. Now, this is not a wrong thing to do or a bad thing to do. It would be easy this would be a kind of an insensitive argument if I was saying you should never try to manage uncertainty, discomfort, lack of control. In a way, that's what civilization is. That's what our lives are based around, trying to mitigate these so that they're at a manageable level. But as practitioners, we're aiming for liberation. If only sometimes we're aiming for it. So let's look at these bufferings. To buffer against the rawness of uncertainty, and I'll speak in terms of parts or patterns. Right? Here's some examples. The rawness of uncertainty, sometimes we have a very analytical part. We're chewing over a situation, we're doing the books, we're getting the facts, we're sizing it up. We're trying to know enough that we can avoid this rawness, maximize our avoidance of the rawness of uncertainty. Or related, there's a planning part of us. Many people captured by planning mind. With the hope, or planning mind thinks, if I plan well enough, then I'll chart a course where I don't have to feel the rawness of how much I don't know. I will live a life where I cleave to the known as much as possible through planning and analyzing. We might buffer against the rawness of uncertainty through what I call a doomsday sayer. And that is, we go, it is all uncertain and it's all effed. It's all bad. We totalize. We buffer the rawness of just being with the experience by being in a state of mind that has decided, well, it's all. Right? I was telling Mushin, who's the leader down in Corvallis, about that I like dystopian science fiction. And she was like, what? Why do you like that? It so lacks imagination. Instead of things in the future being a creative response, you're being entertained by this totalizing vision of zombies. And I was like, oh yeah. Then she kind of, made The Last of Us not as fun. That's okay. There's the dreamy one that buffers against the rawness of uncertainty. In other words, we could live subtly dissociated from that feeling, right? Because this buffering actually buffers. These things do work to a certain degree. Right? And so a mind that is strongly organized around fantasy, right? In a way where we don't have to touch down into the rawness, because it is raw to really feel this condition of uncertainty. Related to the analytical part, but maybe a little bit different. I know this used to be one for me, or maybe sometimes it still is. It's the know-it-all. Right? I buffer against uncertainty by believing that actually things are not certain. They're exactly like this, let me tell you. Let me tell you exactly how they are. And then all that resists my knowledge, all that remains trickster in the universe, in the world, in my community, in my partner, in my own body, I don't have to really face that rawness because, no, I know exactly what's going on. So the rawness of uncertainty you could ask yourself, how do I cope with that? What is my buffering in response to it as an existential texture, a daily texture? How do you manage, how do you navigate this rawness? There's buffering against the rawness of sensory discomfort. Some people have, and these people are often really nice to be around. Some people have a very well-developed caretaker that they just know how to make you feel good all the time. You never have to be cold for a moment or hungry or whatever, because they've really, this part of them has developed to, whatever feels off, there's something that you can do about it. Some people are really good at that. It's a nice mode to have. Also, sensory discomfort, mental escape. Right? When I was younger, I had chronic illness, and the first place I retreated to was comic books. I was really into comic books. And then when Nintendo came out, I'm old enough that there was a time when Nintendo came out. Nintendo came out, and it was awesome, and I could further escape from the rawness of the sensory discomfort of my body. That was really good to be able to do that. There's a buffering against rawness that I call the avoider of uncozy situations. It's a formal title. And the avoider of the uncozy situations knows exactly where not to go. Knows exactly what we will and will not do. We will not put ourselves in an uncozy situation. And this rawness of sensory discomfort sometimes leads us, especially if we're somebody, and I believe there is a spectrum that has a very sensitive nervous system. I didn't know that was true when I was younger, but now after working with people for a long time, I do believe that there's a spectrum of nervous system sensitivity in people. Sometimes there's a mode of being that develops that's basically numbed out. Really, in some way, it could be through substances, it could be just we've learned to disinhabit our bodies. Of course, there could be trauma involved in that. That's, in a way, related, but a different issue. But a numbed out way of living, an eyes glazed over way of living. So the rawness of sensory discomfort, which you can't escape, how do you buffer that? To reflect on your own patterning around that. Finally, the buffering against rawnesses of lack of control. Okay. And here's some ways you might do that. Some people say, well, I can't control anything in the world, but I'm going to control this being as much as possible. And it's a kind of perfectionist part. I can control my appearance. I can control my mind. I can control my house. People love to control their house. I call it a perfectionist. Perfectionist people used to love to come to Zen, especially when we had more firmness around the forms. They loved it because you could come here and do it right, perfectly right. And somebody else would tell the people who aren't doing it right that they're not doing it right, and that would make you feel very satisfied. I avoided that because I did it right. So buffering against the lack of control, try to be perfect here, maybe try to make other people perfect. We might just avoid investing in life altogether, or investing in relationships. Call this the avoider. We can't control them, so we're not going to engage them. We're going to disinvest. the rawness is more, we don't have the training to handle the rawness of not having control, so we disinvest from the situations where that's amplified. We can go into a mode of resentment or aggression around lack of control. That can be a response. You can rage against the machine. And in some contexts, this becomes a transformative power. Maybe that's good. So the rawness of lack of control, which is never deleted, which is never gotten rid of, no matter what mansion you live in, no matter how many bunkers or weapons or whatever planet you go to. Some people want to go to other planets because they can't control it here. How do you manage, navigate, cope with lack of control? Has it congealed into a mode of being? Or seemingly congealed. So I'm thinking that Dharma practice is cultivating the capacities to more and more be with these three rawnesses as they are. To, as we might say, be upright within them. Because we cultivate the capacity to intimately feel and to know that what we feel is a visitor. To know that we're always larger than what we feel, or to discover that capacity of space. We discover that capacity of space to be with the raw, I just want to use the word energy or texture, the raw texture of uncertainty, the raw texture of controllessness, the raw texture of sensory experience. And then actually we can transform our relationship to them. Now my theory, that you might check out, is that the more you're directly able to inhabit these rawnesses, the less buffering you need to do. The more buffering one is doing, the less comfort there is with these rawnesses. It has everything to do with the relationship with those three intensities. A fully awake moment has no buffering. It's the nakedness of space experiencing energy. So we're working to inhabit these rawnesses more in a way to put the buffering out of business, or to not need it so much, because a lot of it crowds out more beautiful dimensions of ourselves. If I'm fully occupied with a planning mind that's trying to manage the reality of uncertainty, instead of just being with the energy of uncertainty, I don't have room for other parts of me. Because it takes a lot of buffering to fight reality. Again, you can't delete these. No one has ever done anything about them. The Buddha didn't get rid of these rawnesses, or anyone you could think of. It wasn't about that. We can't. So I was teaching in these workshops in terms of parts, and as Buddhists, we could think parts are karmic patterns that have been going for long enough that they seem really thick and solid. They seem sort of opaque. They don't budge so easily. They don't give super easily, especially without the technology of awareness. It's a little bit like how water is displaced. If something kind of comes into the pool, everything else splashes out. Become little puddles on the outside. We lose access. Right? We might want our love and our wonder and our tenderness and our creativity and our care for others to be in the system, but if there's all this buffering going on, because being with this rawness is not something we've developed, it's only going to be really intermittent that it comes in. or we're going to depend on something like a substance. I think of how many creatives of the past coped with buffered through substances so they could temporarily turn those parts of themselves off and have their creativity come in. So you could understand your practice in meditation and any living as a practitioner as working your edge with staying with these rawnesses. To stay with them. That's the point of teachings like impermanence and emptiness is not just to like philosophize about reality. They're lenses to empower us that, yeah, this experience is not a monster. In a way, this experience gets its claws and its fangs from my buffering, from my fear of it. So to get sensitive to what it feels like to encounter these, I don't think we normally think of uncertainty and lack of control. Sensory discomfort, I think yes, that's intense. But lack of control and uncertainty, I don't think we often think about those as experiences that we have in any given moment. Partially that's because we're so quick to hit the eject button. Or maybe that's what what's there before anxiety. It's just the raw texture of uncertainty, of lack of control. And as far as reverse engineering, if you find yourself, you've got a lot going on, and it seems the mind is agitated, it's at work, the mind is hard at work, you might ask, what is the rawness that this is working to mitigate? And I like to say the fire that's more fundamental than the smoke. Now, of course, I wish all beings stability in their lives, or I'll make it not abstract. I wish you stability in your life. I wish you the right amount of coziness. I wish you agency where it matters. But we can only have so much. We only have so much. Right? The rug that gets pulled in life is not the situation of someone else. Right? So we train in this way really out of compassion for ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast, and thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation at zendust.org. Your support supports us.